Scott Bessent is a smart guy. He's a talented guy. If this policy making were delegated to him, I wouldn't agree with all of it, but I wouldn't worry fundamentally about being in deeply unsafe hands. But yeah, the tariff calls are being made out of the Oval Office. The calls about the Fed are being made out of the Oval Office. You see Scott Bessent one moment saying, we're comfortable with the Fed because we're focused on getting down the 10-year, which is a great thing to say. Absolutely makes sense.
Right.
And then the next moment, you see Donald Trump commenting on the Fed funds rate, seemingly
Okay.
oblivious to the 10-year.
We're going to rip up the script right now.
Oh,
We
boy.
could do this with the
Yeah.
future vice chairman or chairman of the Fed. Could you see Governor Furman?
Sure.
Come on, let's cut to the chase, Jason, right now. We're beginning to see the percolation. I don't want to editorialize here, folks, of Fed independence. We go back to McChesney Martin. We go back to LBJ, where he took McChesney Martin's ears and picked them up like the dog back then. Jason Furman, is this Fed at risk of its independence?
Look, I'm nervous. So far, I'm a little bit reassured. They had a sweeping executive order about independent agencies and presidential control, and they explicitly included an exception for monetary policy and for the FOMC. It's also hard for them to do anything about it because he only gets 2 appointments over the next 4 years. I hope the courts would not let him fire Jim Powell with no reason. But I'm nervous. To me, it's a tail risk. It's not the most likely scenario, but this is the best economic institution we have. So, 2% chance something happens to it, we should be concerned.
In your youth, you had to carry water from the executive branch over to Capitol Hill. How do you frame in your head that the legislative branch, when they choose to, rebuts a unilateral Trump policy? Do you see this as given committees? Like I think of armed services and Putin. I'm making this up, folks. Stay with me. But Jason, the basic idea is, what's the Furman mechanism of how the legislative branch responds to this moment in our history?
Look, when your party's in power, you're frustrated by checks and balances. You're like, why can't we do everything we want to do? Then when the other party's in power, you're like, hey, I appreciate these a bit. I don't want them to be able to do every single radical idea that they want to do. And, I think you're going to see maybe less checks and balances than I might like coming from Congress, but still a decent amount of them. And some of that inertia is bad. It means we're not going to get done things we should get done. But a lot of that inertia is the inherent conservatism of the American system, where you don't make large, radical, dramatic changes, because conservatives themselves, since Burke, have understood that that's a recipe for all sorts of problems.